We're going to call the meeting to order. We have declaration of a quorum of 6 of 7 board members here. Item C, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to school improvement requirements and campuses' targeted improvement plans. Dr. Eagley.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, members of the board. What we have for you today is a brief public hearing prior to our next scheduled meeting, which will start at 11:10 a.m., and that's for the purposes of doing our required legislative update training. You will recall that on Tuesday evening, we discussed targeted improvement plans at our 5 elementary schools that require those plans, and Mrs. Perry gave a presentation on those plans. One of the newer, as things change at the agency, one of the newer pieces of guidance that we have received is that we need to have a public hearing after the plans have been approved. So since you approved them on Tuesday night, we're having a public hearing for anybody who wishes to provide input on them to be able to do so. So with that, in a very brief presentation will be Mrs. Perry, our Chief Administrative Officer. Mrs. Perry.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ely. Mr. Schaefer, members of the board. We will go back over a portion of the presentation from Tuesday night, and then, of course, if there are any public comments, we'll hear those at the end. So as we discussed, we are required by both statute and the Texas Education Agency to engage in improvement processes for campuses that receive an overall or D in any domain. And we did have 5 campuses that were impacted by those requirements. And as part of that process, we engaged in the Effective Schools Framework. We held public meetings at each of those campuses to solicit input on the development of those plans with those campus communities. And as Dr. Ely mentioned, you all approved those plans on Tuesday evening. And so we are now at that final step in terms of process with the board hearing. Of course, we've already begun the work on implementation at each of the 5 campuses. As we discussed Tuesday, that framework really is all centered around the importance of effective instruction to ultimately improve student performance. The effective instruction is supported not only by the quality of our curriculum, but also by our culture of the school and having really great, effective, and well-supported teachers, which ultimately is all surrounded by that leadership and planning component. So as we consider each of the high leverage essential actions that are part of that framework, each of our campuses identified that they needed to really work on and focus in on that objective-driven daily lesson planning process with formative assessment and using data to really inform instructional practice. Additionally, we had Lever 3.1 of the aligned vision, mission, goals, and values chosen by both Creekview and Spring Creek, and then Southwood Valley is also focusing on development of their leadership team as a whole due to a lot of changes that they've had with staff this particular school year. So as we discussed, each of those campuses plan incorporates the importance of having really well-aligned lessons and supporting our staff through professional development in the area of using the data. With the first year of MAP implementation, that's a big part of those conversations and how we can really group and best leverage our time with our students through identification of specific needs. So those plans are very similar. With 5.1 and 5.3 across each campus. As I mentioned, Creekview is also going to really focus on revising their mission and vision. So South Knoll again with 5.1 and 5.3. Southwood Valley, I mentioned briefly the need to improve that capacity of their leadership folks, as well as using a structured planning process. Spring Creek, they're not necessarily looking at redesigning their vision and mission like Creekview, but they really felt like they needed to work on their collegial atmosphere and improving capacity of the content and leadership skills component. And with that, we would be open to public comment.
Ms. Horn, are there any cards for comment?
With no public comments.
So go ahead and read item D, public comments.
Receive public comments related to targeted improvement plans. With there no being any comments or people to speak, we will go to item E and adjourn.
We adjourn.